is a shaded area on your artifact, it should show to say this area has less sunlight as compared to another area of your artifact. Interpret your design. Make sure that you state what your artifact is going to be used for and how it will be used. I'll explain more on this point later on. Show the methods of construction on your possible solution. How your materials have been joined. You need to show that. So I've made a simple possible solution here. I've made sure to simplify it as much as possible so that we get the point on how to make the possible solution. So if you look at my sketch here, first of all, I've interpreted it. Quite alright, for you it might be easy to tell how your artifact works, but the examiner needs to know how the artifact works. So this artifact here, the node will be placed on this surface here. So I've written here that is the surface where the artifact will be carrying the load. Then if you look at the handles, I've mentioned to say these handles will be made out of rubber so that it's easy for someone to grip. So this is what I'm talking about when I say you should interpret your design. Then you also have the stand here. Someone might not know why this stand is there. So the stand is for stability when the artifact is not moving. So you should indicate such things as you are making your possible solutions. We have wheels here. Make sure you talk about what the wheels are there for. Then I also talked about rendering. If you look at this artifact here, we have pieces of wood here. So I've made sure I've made the end grains or the grains of the wood so that if someone just looks at the piece of wood on my artifact, they might know to say this artifact has wood. Then I've also named the kind of wood that has been used here. It was pine. Then the methods of construction, I said you should also talk about the joints that were used. So if you look at these pieces of wood, there are four pieces here. There's one here, and you have the other two there. Then I've talked about the joint that was used. I've also sketched the joint here. Make sure you also name the kinds of joints that were used. Then still on the construction, I've talked about how the wheel was attached to the mild steel frame here. So these are some of the things you need to consider when making the possible solution. Then for this particular question, we've been asked to talk about 4 important aspects you would consider when developing your chosen solution. So we're talking about things you need to consider when developing your chosen solution. Ideally, you're supposed to make at least 3 possible solutions, then you choose one to develop it. So possible areas to develop on. You can develop things, you can develop the materials, use better materials. You can talk about the finishes, use better finishes on one of the artifacts as you are developing it. You can talk about the joints or the methods of construction. You can make your artifact safer. You can talk about the size of your artifact. You can increase the loading capacity, you can increase on the weight. So that's what you can talk about there. Then, another possible question you can be asked here is to talk about the suitable materials for your artifact. So when you're talking about the materials, you should be specific. You don't just say wood, metal, or plastic. You should be specific when you're talking about the materials. So possible materials, you can talk about mild steel, galvanized steel, pine wood, plywood. So avoid naming your material as just wood. As you can see here, I've specified to say pine wood, plywood. You don't say just metal. I've talked about the specific metals here: mild steel, galvanized steel. So if your artifact has plastic, you don't just say plastic. You talk about the specific materials like acrylic, polythene, such things. So the next question, give 2 reasons why testing and evaluating an artifact, or give 2 reasons why testing and evaluating of a product is important in the design process. Why do we need to evaluate your artifact? So it's important to evaluate our artifact so that we know that it has solved the problem. The whole idea of the design process is to solve a problem. So if your artifact does not solve that problem, then it hasn't achieved its purpose. Another reason is to know if our artifact is safe to the user and to the environment. To know if the material used for artifact is suitable. It's not always that the materials that have been used in our artifact are the best. So if you evaluate your artifact, you know to say, my artifact needs such improvements on the material, or the material used are okay. So the next question you might be asked is on the safety precautions on your artifact, or how you can make the artifact safe for the user. So you can talk about things like smoothing the edges. So if you look at most artifacts, they don't have a lot of sharp edges, so that you prevent injuring the person that is using the artifact. So you can also use materials that are not harmful for the user and the environment. You can't make an artifact that will be harming the user. So this is the end of the presentation on how to answer the design question. If you have better ways of answering this design question, you are free to share in the comments.